Well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Elliot Callan, CEO of Prosperity Financial Group in California. And it's a very exciting show because we're going to interview an entrepreneur that in 10 years built his company from a startup to $1 billion. Unbelievable story here. A gilded road. Most entrepreneurs don't understand that, don't experience that. I certainly didn't. My road is anything but paved with gold. Lots of setbacks along the way and struggles. And they've just been going great. So we're going to spend time on leadership, diversity, adversity, and how to grow your business, and then messages from him. So it's very exciting what we're going to do today. Very exciting. And so if you got entrepreneurs that you know, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're in a leadership position, or know anybody at your family or friends that would love to listen to this, that's what we're talking about. Come join us. I think you're going to love the show. Well, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Elliot Callan, and welcome to a very exciting episode of Meet the Expert with Elliot Callan. Today, we have Dave Groff on. Dave is from Lidditz, Pennsylvania. That's Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. If you don't know that area of Pennsylvania, it's not Philadelphia, it's not Pittsburgh. There are more cows than there are people. And I have to say, when I was a kid, and that's Amish country, we traveled out there, went to the Kutztown Fair. I have great memories of Lancaster County, so I've got great things to say about it. We're not going to talk about those memories, but we're going to talk about something that David is doing that other people are not doing. And that is, he built a business in kind of a mature market, which is restaurant supply. But if you're somebody that likes that entrepreneurial story and somebody that's upsetting the apple cart and doing something that other people aren't doing, you're going to love today's story with Dave Groff. So wake up, business owners, wake up, future entrepreneurs, wake up, leaders of America, wake up, people you know that are in your family that want to be that. I think you're going to love what you hear today. So, Dave, welcome to our show.
Thanks so much for having me, Elliot. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, I know you went to Penn State. That's going to irritate all of our Ohio State fans and Michigan fans, but that's okay. Why don't you tell us your journey here for a moment, Dave, about going from Penn State to one of the largest restaurant supply companies in the world?
Sure, yeah. So I grew up in Lancaster, went to Penn State. I didn't know if I would ever end up back in Lancaster County, but fortunately for me, I ran into the owner of Clark Associates, which is our parent company. And going into my senior year of college, I was coming off of an internship, having had a really great experience in a large corporate environment. But ran into Fred Clark, who is our chairman today, and at the time was running Clark Associates. And he, if there's anybody that really built a business, it's him. So, he was my mentor and spoke to me as I was graduating from Penn State and said, "Hey, you've had the corporate experience. If you ever want to try something that's a little bit more entrepreneurial, something where you can kind of wear a lot of different hats and really get involved in a business that, at the time he thought was really going to grow quite a bit in the coming years," he invited me to be a part of that. And that was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me, because I started with Fred right out of school, learned a ton from him, came in kind of a rotational type role where I was doing a little bit of purchasing, a little bit of sales, inventory control. And at the time, the Webstront store, which had been in development for a few years, and he had some interns working on kind of getting it set up and running, was getting ready to launch. That was spring and summer of 2004. And he said, "Hey, I need someone to run with this thing." And I was just starting with the company at the time. I said, "Sure." It became one of my projects. And then over the years, as it grew from a team of 3 or 4 people to today, we've got over 6,000 employees throughout the country. It became my full-time job. So it's been quite a journey.
Wow. So you've gone in 10 years from zero to $1 billion.
So we launched in 2004. And the first few years for us were very bumpy. So we were trying a lot of things. We were learning quite a bit about what did work, and also quite a bit more about what didn't work. But being part of an existing company, the Clark Associates as a whole was about a $30 million business that Fred had built back then. And we had a variety of divisions: traditional street sales, we had a design build division, we had a chain of cash and carry stores. And so the Webstront store was kind of able to piggyback off of that and use the resources of that existing company as our launching pad. And so we were able to make it through those early rocky years because of that, and because Fred was willing to continue investing in the model. And it took us about until about 2018 to get to our first billion. So the first few years were really, really slow, but then we started to see that exponential growth curve. And yeah, like I said, by 2018 we were at 2018 we were at 1 billion, and then we are just closing in on 4 billion. So we've grown quite a bit even since 2018.
Wow, just amazing what you're doing. Well, the company is called, if you're interested in it, in Webstaurant, like restaurant, but Webstaurant store, one word, WEBSTAURANTSTORE.com, right? So let me tell you, if you have questions and you want to talk to David, and we're going to spend some time on this, let me tell you how to reach us. We're at www.prosperityfinancialgroup.com. I'm at Elliot at prosperityfinancialgroup.com. And the phone number is 925-314-8503. Why are we interviewing David on Meet the Expert with Elliot Callan? So many of our clients here that listen to this, and we've got thousands of people that listen to these episodes, top 2% in the world, in the financial world of podcasts. That's an amazing statistic. I'm amazed with that. We're in top 2%. So many of our clients believe in, and we're going to talk about this, leadership, entrepreneurship, growth, creating something out of nothing, making the excitement of taking dust, an idea, and now creating something with it. And of course, for some people, and you're kind of young doing this, the road is not so paved with gold. I mean, you've had in the short time, even though it was rocky at the beginning, you had an outside company financing you, and now you have a golden road, so to speak. For a lot of us in the entrepreneurial business, we're self-financing, or we're looking for credit at banks, or we're looking for people that like our idea. It's so different. I don't want to talk about the journey of the two companies in a second too, because it is kind of a golden journey, and most people don't experience that. And then how you've dealt with the leadership and the challenges of leadership too. Because one of the issues that entrepreneurs face is they may be really good at putting an idea on paper and bringing it out, but being a leader of teams is just so different than everywhere else. But logistically, let me talk about that first, David. You're a restaurant supply, which means hardware, not food, correct?
That used to be the case, and it's still the what we call durable goods makes up the vast majority of business, especially in the early years. However, we are increasingly doing more in what we call the non-durable space, which includes disposable products like takeout containers and paper towels and napkins and that type of thing. But more so now, we actually are getting more into food. So mostly non-perishable products that we could easily ship over the internet. But we have a small part of our business that actually includes perishable products too. But for the most part, we're equipment and supplies.
Okay, so let's just focus on equipment and supplies. And I know food, you're going to have the challenges of shelf life and distance and
Right.
all that stuff. But I want to talk about perishable supplies. Right down the street from us in Oakland, California, is a pretty good size kitchen supply business. It's local. It's been there, I don't know, 80 years. I actually, for one of my nonprofits, I rebuilt a kitchen for them using them. They designed it, they installed it. They were pretty good at what they did. Um, how do you compete there? I mean, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of those type of companies around the country. And you guys are kind of a just-in-time inventory. How could you possibly stock what you need long distance? How could you possibly be just in time compared with the local? How do you do that?
Yeah, so the great question. So how do we compete? What we try to position ourselves as is a one-stop shop for any food service business, and even more beyond food service. We're doing a lot in janitorial supplies and other product categories that touch many different types of businesses. But, to your specific example, when you were working on your commercial kitchen project, we see customers coming to us because we have inventory. And a lot of the businesses that we're competing with, a lot of those brick and mortar businesses that are out there, have a small offering of inventory, but because of their scale and because they're working in just one kind of small regional market, they don't have the ability to stock the wide variety of stuff that we can carry in one of our distribution centers and get it to customers within 1 or 2 days. There was an example that popped up not too long ago about a bagel shop, and they needed one of their conveyor toasters broke, and so they came to us because after calling around to a bunch of local supply companies, nobody had the product that they needed in stock. It was going to take, maybe a day or two to process the order, put the special order in. Then it's going to take another week or two to get the product to the shop and then out to the customer. So what we've tried to do is take all of that inefficiency out of the supply chain and be able to get stuff not only at a better price, but also quite a bit quicker than anybody else to the end customer.
So on that word bagel, and I think of myself as a little bit of a bagel expert, so I can speak with some knowledge on that. So if I wanted to open a bagel store tomorrow, and I know that I think is the best way to make bagels and then serve them and have the supplies to do that. And everybody's listening to this has been to a bagel store. So they know what I'm talking about. And if you're from New York, and I'm from the North Jersey market, and we think of ourselves as bagel experts compared to the rest of the country, we know that you boil bagels before you put them in the oven. That's just how you do it. But you go to a lot of places and they just bake them, and then they taste like they're baked. And frozen bagels like that are made by Sara Lee, nothing against a big multi-giant company like Sara Lee, they're baked and they taste like baked bread. So would you come to me if I said, hey, all the things you need, all the things I need in my bagel store, you can help me with? You help me not only design it, but do you help me by saying, hey, listen, Elliot, if you want to compete on taste, then best in industry, best in class is boil and bake. Worst in class is bake only. Is that your advice too? That you're giving a small business owner like me?
Yeah, so what we would try to do in a situation like that is present the customer with options. So one important distinction between us and an offline traditional equipment and design company is some of them do offer extensive design services. Today, that's not something that's available through the Webstron store, but what we would do is refer them to another sister company that we have under the Clark Associates umbrella that does specialize in that type of thing. So we would be able to get them to a different type of company within our portfolio that specializes in that level of service. But what we find is that a lot of customers come to us, and if they don't necessarily know all of the things that they might need to order to get their bagel shop up and running. So we have pages of our website that are dedicated towards basically laying all of that out. So customers know exactly what to order, not only in terms of equipment based off of the process that they have in mind for producing their bagels, but also all of the disposable products and maybe even some of the seasonings and other types of products that might go into opening up their location. We try to put out all of that out there for them and at a really, really good price.
Yeah, I bring it up, and I don't really care about the bagel in particular, but as a foodie that I am, you know that 80% of all ethnic food tastes exactly the same. So most pizza tastes exactly the same. Most Chinese food tastes exactly the same. Most Italian food, most Japanese food, it tastes exactly the same. And then you get to 10 or 5% or 15 or 20% of those that are just exceptional. They stand out, they do a better job. Whatever they did, is that part of something that you would advise, or you don't even bother that? That's my problem as the business owner, not your problem as the supplier.
Well, what we try to do is be the expert at distributing the equipment and supplies for whatever the customer might need, and we don't currently offer any sort of um, tips or chef tricks or anything like that that would help them produce their end product. We find that a lot of chefs come to us with a very clear vision already in mind for what they want to do, and they just need help getting the stuff, the tools, and the equipment to them at a decent price quickly in order to execute on what their vision is. So we try to specialize in that piece of it. But I certainly wouldn't consider myself an expert when it comes to the culinary side of it.
Well, we're gonna have to get you out of Eastern Pennsylvania a little bit here. So, part of running a business, you and I both know I run three businesses here, CEO of three companies. You've got your business. You have to be a good leader. Sometimes you have to be a strong leader. Sometimes you have to be an effective leader. Sometimes you have to be an empathetic leader. There are lots of hats that you wear as a leader. How do you view your leadership style, and how have you been challenged in the leadership capacity as you've gone from 3 employees to 6,000?
Yeah. So I would say that for me, it feels like I basically had the same title for 20 years, but it feels like I've had 20 different jobs because, like you said, it's a completely different thing managing a group of three people to today managing a team of over 6,000. So I've tried to scale with the company. But what's been really, I think, critical for me has been getting the right team in place, both at the leadership level and at the frontline level to make that possible. In terms of like how do we think about leadership here at our company? We try to focus on the fact that for us, the one of the sayings that we have is, you become a manager the day that you get the title, whatever that title might be, but you don't really become a leader until you earn the respect of the people that are on the team. And from that respect, you have influence because there's trust there. And so what we've tried to develop here is a culture where leadership is really engaged with everybody at all levels of the organization, where we're listening to what's going on and we're listening to concerns, where people feel appreciated, where people feel challenged, where people feel like they can grow. That's the type of environment that we're trying to develop here. We want to have the type of atmosphere where all of the leaders in the organization lead by example, where they're in touch with what's going on. I can't imagine anything worse, and I've seen this happen in other companies where leadership gets comfortable in their ivory towers and they have absolutely zero idea of what their frontline people are dealing with throughout the business. So what we want to make sure we do here is have an organization that is as flat as possible. So leadership is as close to the people doing the actual work as we can, logistically make it without creating too many issues in the hierarchy. But we want to make sure that people are connected and that people know each other and that there's a sense of anybody can reach out to anybody throughout the entire organization. I'm a big, Tom Peters had his Passion for Excellence books back in the 80s and 90s, and I'm a big Tom Peters fan. And one of the things that he talks about is managing by wandering around, which, we kind of view here as a metaphor or a mindset of staying in touch with what's going on. That's a big part of what we try to instill in our leadership team at the company.
That's great. So is Tom Peters your favorite author?
He's definitely one of them. I love Tom Peters. I've been listening quite a bit to Adam Grant's podcast, and I have a number of his books. I think what he talks about is really well aligned with what we're doing here. We use a lot of Patrick Lencioni's materials, like for example, the ideal team player concept is a vocabulary that we use within our organization. That's been really helpful. Jim Collins' Good to Great is another one that has really resonated with us, especially as we've gone from startup to the size company that we are now, whether that's the concept of the flywheel, what are the key things that you have to focus on within your business to keep that flywheel turning, or some of the other ideas that he has around getting the right people on the bus. I would say those are some of the top people that have influenced the way that I lead, and I think the way that most of the company leads.
Well, I'll add one to your vocabulary here. Over my left shoulder is a book called Driven by Elliott Callan, which is an Amazon bestseller.
All right, great.
Shameless plug, but I might as well put it in.
Absolutely.
Driven by Elliott Callan. It's on Amazon. If you send me your address when we're all done, I'll send you the book for free.
All right, sounds good. We'll do.
It's on leadership, and the reason I'm so focused on leadership is I look at leaderships and entrepreneurs as having pillars of success, from the startup to the phase 2 or the second pillar that you're in, which is growth, and manageable growth and sustainable growth and a good feeling. And you go home one night feeling good about what you're doing. And then phase 3, which you've got a long way to go, is what's the next step for the company without me? What's my step for me without the company? And you got a long way to go. You're pretty young on that. You start approaching those 60s and you think, okay, are we going to be doing this for life, or is there another step in my life, and how do I enjoy that? So we're not there yet, but that's what that book's about. And adversity. And let me talk about adversity for a moment. I've got a little bit different adversity than the average person out there, because I had to build up my company while losing a son at the same time. And so that's a pretty hard thing to do for any parent. But we stayed focused and we built through that, and we ended up starting a charity and a foundation, which I'm a huge fan of giving back. And now, we're actually in multi countries, not just multi states, but multi countries with our charity, which is very cool, on stress and depression for teens. But you faced your own challenges. I saw in the paperwork that you sent me in 2020, you had a pretty big challenge in your company.
COVID was, if you want to talk about adversity for us, 50% of our business disappeared overnight. And so that was a really turbulent time for us. We bounced back really fast, which actually proved to be even more of a challenge because we came back faster than we imagined. More and more people were using e-commerce because local suppliers didn't have reliable inventory. So we were actually chartering our own ships to come, to bring product in to make sure that we had reliable supply for all of our customers. And then the labor crunch and the inflation that ensued in the subsequent years created a very turbulent period from about 2020 to early 2023. We're now in this period where things are starting to get back to normal. But I would say that adversity really helped us. It helped us to sharpen our skills, to make sure that we've got the right people in the right roles, that we're developing people in the right way, and that we're training and supporting people. But I would argue that if we can make it through 2020 and all of the challenges that came in the year or two after that, we can do just about anything. That's how we're thinking about it here.
Is that what you would consider your greatest challenge as a leader at that time?
For us, I would say each year was a little different. For the first, it was just navigating the uncertainty that happened with COVID in the beginning, and through that, I think one thing that I learned was the importance of frequent, honest, transparent communication, so people knew exactly what was going on. That was one takeaway for me. But also, I think it was making sure that both from a personal standpoint and also throughout the organization, we think we're honest about problems and we talk about what our problems are. And we use another Jim Collins term, the brutal facts. We want to be really good at communicating what our brutal facts are, but we also want to view them as opportunities. So it's not just there's this external problem or there's that external problem, but what's the opportunity here? And the opportunity for us in COVID was to say, look, there are so many restaurateurs out there that are struggling right now, and we really empathize with them. How can we serve them best? And how can we make sure that they can save money right now by buying products through us versus buying products through another supplier that might not have the same economies of scale? So we were able to save people money, but even more importantly, we were able to get them reliable access to the things that they needed, whether that was gloves, whether that was takeout containers, to kind of scrape by in those early COVID days when restaurants weren't even able to have customers in their physical locations. So we viewed it as an opportunity to support our customers and to earn new business and new customers at a time when they needed us the most. So that was the opportunity.
Well, Dave, that brings me to my next question, but let me just remind everybody we're talking about David Groff. David is in a web restaurant supply business. It's not really food, but everything but food, except for where he can deliver food. And they have gone in 10 years from basically zero to $1 billion plus. And it is amazing what they're doing, being ahead of the game. And that brings me to my next question. And if people want to reach me, it's Elliot, ELLIOT, at prosperityfinancialgroup.com. But my next question is, the restaurant supply business is like so many supply businesses. You're not manufacturing anything, but you have to have everything. I need pots, but I need cutlery. I need cutlery, but I need plates. I need plates, and I need salt shakers. And you have to have all that. I'm naive in what you really need because I don't own a restaurant. But there are tens of thousands of products. I'm quite sure about that. You're kind of like the Granger of restaurant supply, if you want to call it that. They have everything. So when you're trying to get in front of this, which is what we just talked about, what happened with COVID, how does one stay in front in your industry and in general? And what advice would you give to other entrepreneurs about staying in front of versus being the laggard and catch up in their own industry?
So for us, I would bring it back to our culture. So our culture values three things. The first is doing the right thing, and that's pretty straightforward: being honest, being ethical, being respectful, giving back. And so for us, that's the foundation. If we don't do that right, if we don't have those values in place, nothing else matters. So I wanted to point that out first. But the other two, I think, get at what you're talking about. So for us, the second thing that we really value in our company is an entrepreneurial spirit. And so really kind of going back to the beginnings of the company, we started in the early 70s as an electrical mechanical contracting business. And Fred, who is our chairman today, was running the company, like I said, when I started 20 years ago. he's in the 80s and 90s. He said, well, we're doing a lot of electrical work for restaurants, so why not also sell restaurant equipment and supplies? And that led to our design build division, a traditional street sales division, eventually our stores, and then ultimately in 2004 our website. So it's, I always say, like, if those risks weren't taken, if the questions were never asked, hey, what if we sold restaurant supplies? What if we started designing restaurants? What if we opened a store? What if we opened more stores? Those questions were never asked, those risks weren't taken, we wouldn't be here today. So we want to make sure that we maintain that willingness to ask questions and take risks, whether that's a completely new venture, whether that's getting into a new product category, whether that's launching a new service, that type of willingness to try new things. We say that we're good with experimenting. We're good with failure. In fact, we believe failure needs to happen as long as it happens early, often, and cheaply. So we want to make sure that that value is there, because to me, that's what help someone stay ahead. It's the companies that aren't willing to experiment, the companies that don't have a tolerance for failure, that kind of get stuck in a certain way of doing things and then miss opportunities. So the entrepreneurial spirit part of our culture, I think, is an important component of that. But I would also say the third key element of our culture is a passion for excellence. And so I think that having that commitment to excellence and having the mindset of how are we going to do this better today than we did yesterday? And in our company, we look at everything from what is our call, email, and chat response time down to the minute. And we're making sure that we get that as small a number as possible so that we're getting back to our customers quickly. We look at our click to door time frame. So when somebody clicks purchase to the time that it arrives on their at their business, what is that time frame, and what are the different components that make up that click to door timeline, and how do we keep shrinking that more and more and more? Uh, what's the packaging like on our products? And when it arrives, does it look good? Is it broken? Is it damaged? How do we make sure that we continue to tweak that and make a better presentation to the customer? Yeah, I think it's obsessing about those details and never stopping and constantly looking for what we can be better at, that I think is the other side of what you're talking about. How do you stay ahead? Is that commitment to constantly getting better.
Well, this has been great. I've got one more question for you. As an entrepreneur, I think it's and a leader. I think one of the greatest challenges that we have is time management and keeping a balance in life. And I just give you my opinion. I think if you look at, so to speak, those three cups that with the ball going underneath them all the time, and then you got to find the ball. I look at them as you've got to be great at what you do at work. You can't be good. You got to be great. You can't be great every day, but you got to be great. You got to be a great dad, and you got to be a great husband. You cannot be, or a great spouse or significant other, whatever the term is. You can't be, and you can't be great at all of them every day. That's impossible. That phrase of the 1970s on Virginia Slim's commercial is, "Baby, you can have it all." You can't. That doesn't work like that. So, what's your method? What's your message to entrepreneurs of how to balance their life while they're trying to build an entity? And sometimes, like in the early days, they're scratching and clawing and emptying garbage cans or test tubes, and they're doing all the things that nobody really likes to do. But as an entrepreneur, you have to get done. What's your message to them?
Yeah, I think your point's right. I think that there's absolutely trade-offs, and I think it's important to be honest about what those trade-offs are, and honest with your family, honest with yourself, and decide what you value the most and where you're going to put your most valuable resource, which is of course your time. I think that one of the things that has been helpful to me, and one of the things that we do at our company to maintain a consistent approach to leadership and culture is we have a very extensive training program for anybody that moves into a leadership role along with other key roles within the organization. And we talk about time management. And one of the exercises that we do in time management is we have people log their time over the course of a week. And then we say, what are the things that you think are important? And then based off of where you're spending your time, how does that line up? Because your calendar doesn't lie. And to me, like, that's the ultimate way of holding up a mirror and saying, I say I value these things, but is this where I'm putting my most valuable resource, my time? And so I feel like that's a good way to reflect. We also use tools here like the Eisenhower matrix, the urgent and important matrix, to help us think about what falls into the that not urgent but important side of things, which is where people typically neglect, both from a business and I think from a personal life standpoint. And I think it's through those reflections and through just constantly running those scripts in your mind around where am I spending my time? Is it aligned with my values? That I think hopefully you get to a place of making sure that those two things are in sync. So for me, I've been married for 13 years, and I have two girls, 7 and 9. So family is really, really important, and I want to make sure that I'm giving my best here, but I'm also giving my best at home. And I'll bring it back to culture again because, like I said, there's definitely trade-offs, but we want to be the type of organization where really talented, hardworking people can have an excellent trajectory of growth in their professional lives while not having to make unreasonable sacrifices in their personal lives. And I'll give you a quick example. We've had people that have come to us from some of the top tier consulting companies out there, and they bring horror stories of spending you know days away from home, and they're working 70 or 80 hours, and they're not seeing their family and they're not seeing their kids, and these are really talented people. We've found a place for them within our organization because I think our approach, and kind of goes back to doing the right thing, has allowed people to have maybe not everything, but more balance in the way that they're approaching their lives.
Well, that's a great message. And, Dave, this has been a great conversation, not just about the restaurant supply business, but it's about leadership, entrepreneurship, personal growth, corporate growth. Great conversation. Dave, if people want to reach you, how do they do that?
Sure. So you can go to the webstrongstore.com if you have any interest in taking a look at our company or what we do. But you can also reach me through LinkedIn. That's probably the best avenue, the easiest avenue to get in touch. And I'd be happy to, reach out, ask me anything.
Great. This has been great. If you need to reach me again and you want to have more conversation about any of the subjects, or you want to go to the website and see the other 60 plus episodes of Meet the Expert with Elliott Callan, it's at prosperityfinancialgroup.com and 925-314-8503. Send me a message at elliott@prosperityfinancialgroup.com, and we'll put you in touch with Dave if you want to have a one-on-one conversation with him about any of these subjects. Dave, thanks so much for being part of this today. Have a great day.
Sure. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Elliott.
Well, this has been an amazing show. It went in a direction that I didn't think it would go, which is about leadership. I mean, we've been talking with Dave Groff, and he built a business that went from $0 to $1 billion, which by itself is an amazing story that almost nobody experiences, but they did. Thankfully, he had the financing and the experience of his mentor to help him doing that. But more importantly, what he did is he learned the values of leadership and how to go from 0 employees to 6,000 and manage those personalities. Because every day with 6,000 employees is a lesson in adversity and leadership and controversy and life's lessons. And he takes the life lessons that he learned in college at Penn State and he applies them in a way that's just amazingly successful. And I think every entrepreneur and every leader in America who understands business will get something valuable out of today's episodes.